it's the seventh month from the beginning of the year.
Okay.
So, and that was actually really interesting. I was discussing this morning with someone, and we read what we just actually the same exact thing as we just read here, Leviticus 23:24. And the response was, well, wait a minute. And this was someone who doesn't have a great background in Jewish culture. So the person's response was, I thought this was the beginning of the year, but it says here it's the seventh month. Well, the whole idea of Rosh Hashanah is something that doesn't appear anywhere in the Tanakh. That's an idea that the Jews brought back with them from Babylon. The rabbis actually admit that this is something that is not, well, they don't exactly admit it's not core to the Torah, but here's what they do admit. In the Mishnah of Rosh Hashanah, the first passage says there are 4 new years. Why do they say there's 4 new years? Because they understand that the new year the new year counted as the first day of the first month. That's actually the primary new year. So they say that's the new year of months, right? So here's what they really did. They took the Babylonian or Persian New Year, and because the Babylonians had a similar calendar, and their New Year, though, is in the first day of the 7th month instead of the first day of the first month, and they call that month Tishrei. So the first Tishrei was the Babylonian New Year, and they adopted that New Year, but they didn't invalidate the Torah New Year. So here's what it says in Mishnah Rosh Hashanah 1:1. There are 4 new years. The first of Nisan, meaning the first month, is the new year for kings and for festivals. So why do they say for festivals? Because we read in Leviticus 23 and Numbers 28 and 29, and it says the first month and the 7th month, right? You have to acknowledge that for counting the festivals, that's the first day of the first month. And really, that's actually the first commandment in the Torah. Exodus chapter 12, verse 2 is the first commandment in the Torah to Israel as a people. And that commandment is, this month, new moon is for you, the beginning of new moons. So they acknowledge that it's the new moon for the festivals. They go on, the first of El is the new year of the tithes, for the tithes of beasts. The first of Tishrei is the new year for the years, for Shemitah, that is the sabbatical cycle, and Jubilee years, for planting and for tithes of vegetables. The first of Shvat is the new year for trees. Okay. So they have 4 new years. What do they mean, the new year for trees? That's an agricultural maybe celebration or observance that may have existed in ancient Israel. It's not even hinted at anywhere in the Tanakh. So maybe it's part of the ancient Israelite culture, but it's not part of the Torah that the creator of the universe gave to mankind. So here's the idea of Rosh Hashanah being the first of Tishrei, the first of the 7th month, is completely contrary to what we read in the Torah. Hey, I want to talk about the meaning of Truah.
Okay.
So if it's not Rosh Hashanah, what's the holiday called? We saw in Numbers 29:1, it's called Yom Truah, the day of Truah. And Leviticus 23:24, it's called Zichron Truah, the memorial of Truah, or the mentioning of Truah. The actual meaning of Zichron is, it comes from the word Zachar, Lahazkir. Lahazkir is to mention. Now, a lot of people say, well, wait a minute, Zachar is to remember. So in ancient Hebrew, biblical Hebrew, this word meant both to remember something and to mention it with your lips. And how could it mean both? Well, it's the idea of summoning it up. You can summon it up with your lips by speaking it, or you can summon it up in your mind by thinking about it, by remembering it. So it's an active memory, summing it up in the memory. And then that's what God meant in Exodus 3:15. He says, this is my name forever. This is my zecher for every generation. And some people translate it, this is my memorial for every generation. That we're not to use God's name anymore. We're just supposed to remember it. That's not what it means at all. Quite the contrary. He meant, this is my mention for every generation. When you mention me, this is how you're supposed to refer to me, as Yehovah. And then Exodus 20:24, he says, every place where I cause my name to be mentioned, in every place where Azkir et Shemi, where I cause my name to mention, I will come to you and bless you. And Zichron Truah, that word Zichron may be, I think it is, it's a term that refers to mentioning God's name. In other words, this term Zachar took on a technical sense of to mention the name of a god. And I say a god because there's a commandment not to mention the names of other gods. And it has that same exact word, Zachar. And here in the context of the God of Israel commanding us to have a Zichron Truah, we're supposed to Truah his name and we haven't defined what truah is, though. We're supposed to truah his name, to mention his name.